Hello, my name is Mar and welcome back to my channel. One thing about me is that I am a book lover and I'm also a K-pop lover. Two hobbies that pretty much make me chronically single. So for this February, the month of love, I would be reading K-pop romance novels for a week, because one thing about me is that if I'm going to be chronically single, I am also going to be delusional about it. So come with me as we read some of the most popular K-pop romances. First book I'm going to be reading is Shine by Jessica Jung. If you don't know who Jessica Jung is, she is an ex-K-pop idol. She was in the group Girls' Generation from debut all the way till 2014. She just came out with this novel a couple years ago, and so I'm really curious as to see what this novel is about. I believe she just released a sequel to this book as well, but I wonder how much of this book is actually based off of her real life experience being a K-pop trainee, being a K-pop idol. Let's read this book and see how far I get. I don't think this book is that long. I think it's only like 300 pages. I can do this. I can read this in like a day. Also, I'm wearing my necklace from Private Paradise. This is like the DNA BTS inspired necklace. And if you use my code Marissa Paradise, you can get 15% off your order. This isn't sponsored by them, by the way. I'm genuinely a fan of this small business. Since I'm making a video about K-pop, might as well put in that little shout out. So if you are looking to find some subtle K-pop merch that is really cute, go check out Private Paradise Co. and get 15% off your order. Let's get started with this. Okay, so I just finished the first chapter of this, and these chapters are pretty long. They're 20 pages long. Pretty much this book is about this Korean American K-pop trainee named Rachel Kim. She's signed to this company called DB Entertainment. She's still a trainee and she's training to debut in a K-pop group. Right off the bat, there is already so much drama in this book. There are nepo babies involved. There's a Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner name drop. So yeah, I'm now on chapter 2 and I will try to read maybe up until page 100. Then I'll let you guys know my thoughts. Okay, so I made it to chapter 7, which is about page 100. In these chapters, we've met the main love interest already, so this book worked way faster than I thought it would be. The main character, she's not my favorite person, very much the underdog of the K-pop industry and all of that, but at the same time, there are some things where I'm just girl, I really don't have any sympathy or empathy for you. The main love interest is named Jason Lee, and he's sort of the it boy, the idol that everyone's talking about. Main sort of plot is that the company wants one of the trainees to sing a duet with him on stage. A lot of stuff happens in Rachel's audition that leaves it a disaster. She's trying to figure out a plan to sort of get a second chance to sing this duet with him. It's going in a direction that I did not expect this book to go in. I've only been reading for about an hour or so and I've gotten this far. So yeah, it's a pretty short book. It's a pretty easy read. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna continue reading and I'll give you my updates later. Okay, so I just made it to chapter 13. It's fine, and I think a lot of this is pulled from Jessica Jung's personal experience as a K-pop trainee, especially the chapters that focused more on being a K-pop trainee and the actual training process and sort of how that lifestyle works. Now we've made it into this weird sort of territory. The romantic love interest involved. I'm not really sure how this book is going to end. I'm only on page like 186 and I'm a bit more than halfway done this book now. So I'm gonna keep reading this. I have some thoughts on this book, but I'm not gonna share them until I'm completely finished because they might change. I just finished Shine by Jessica Jung, and let's talk about it. Honestly, I would say I would give this a 2.5 stars. It was fine at the beginning. The plot is very basic in itself. Like, I've read a lot of different other young adult K-pop inspired books that have a similar plot to this, but with this one it really just starts to feel like you're reading a bunch of side quests and there's not really any main plot. You don't really know what the main character's motivations are. Is it to prove herself? Is it to debut in a girl group? Is it to find love? And so it sort of strays from having an actual plot. Like, just story-wise, I would give it 2 out of 5. It just felt like stuff happened in this book. And now talking about the characters, it does feel like Jessica Jung tried to insert herself. The main character is loosely based off of Jessica Jung herself and her trainee life. It does feel like it's a whole self-insert. It is very much emphasized throughout this entire book that Rachel Kim is this kind of naturally talented singer. She is like most likely to be the lead vocalist in the group. And, you know, she's really sweet and, you know, she's the nicest one there. She's the one that is the victim of a lot of things that are happening. She's kind of almost like this perfect little princess and everyone kind of emphasizes it, even if the character herself is kind of like, I don't think I'm a princess, but I do think people are doing me wrong. I could not tell you anything else about Rachel Kim except that she's a good singer and she has a sister. That's all I could really tell you about this character. When we bring in the romance, I think the romance in this book is just brought on so quick because you barely have time to learn about who Rachel Kim is as a character, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into this kind of romance plot with this character named Jason Lee, and he is the most basic romance character you could have. He's also a bit complex. He has his flaws and all that, but there's no convincing reason to me as to why he's the main love interest, other than he's the only boy in this book that gets introduced. As for like the book itself, Jessica does try to incorporate struggles that she went through, such as like misogyny and sexism and all that, which is good that it's being addressed, and you know how there's a double standard between like male K-pop idols and female K-pop idols, but at the same time, the way she writes her characters, definitely some internal misogyny. All of the other girls written in this book are written as like really catty. It's like they'll have like their flaws for sure and they'll have their own kind of personal struggles, but then it's like none of the characters learn from any situations that they're in. It's sort of just like a situation will happen and they'll just go back to square one, and it just keeps repeating like that. For a book that's trying to deal with like sexism and misogyny, there's a lot of internal misogyny that I don't think Jessica really realized when she was writing this book. Story-wise, I would give it a 2 out of 5. Characters, 3 out of 5. Romance-wise, like 2 out of 5. This first book definitely did not start off that strong, but we're gonna move on to the next one. So the next K-pop romance I'm going to read is Somewhere Only We Know by Maurene. This one is about this K-pop star named Lucky, and she just finished her tour in Asia, and so she's in Hong Kong, and one night she decides to sneak out of her hotel room because she's dying for a hamburger. During this time, she's so delirious and she runs into this guy named Jack, and pretty much they have this whole night where they're together and some stuff happens. I've read the first couple chapters and for the most part, I really like this. I think it's very cheesy, but at the same time, it's like not cringe-worthy cheesy. Like I can handle reading it. I'm gonna continue reading this and I'll update you in a couple chapters. Okay, so I made it to about halfway. Honestly, I'm enjoying this a lot more than I thought I would. I forgot to mention this, but this is also like a dual point of view book, so you get the point of view of both the girl and the guy. Usually I don't like dual point of view, but for this one it works so well because essentially both of the characters are lying to each other about certain things, and so reading both of their thought processes, how they're navigating, telling each other like what can we tell each other, like that's truthful versus what's a lie. Like the banter in this book is really good and it's giving the vibe of like Ferris Bueller Day Off. Just gonna continue reading and I can probably finish this book today, to be quite honest. I just finished Somewhere Only We Know by Maurene, and honestly, I really enjoyed this book. It very much gives like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like it's about these two people who just decide, you know, for a night that they're just going to let go of their worries, you know, have a fun night out in Hong Kong. It is a really cute romance. Again, it's very much like strangers to lovers kind of romance. Neither of them really know who each other are and they're lying to each other about a lot of things. Overall, I would actually give the story a good 4 out of 5. I really like the story. Also really like the characters. I would give the characters a 4 out of 5 as well. Both characters are in very complex situations, and I think that's what makes this book so fun to read. Both characters are keeping secrets from each other and you just don't know when those secrets are going to unravel. I think romance-wise, I would probably give it a 3 out of 5. It is very slow, very kind of spontaneous type of love. Writing-wise, this is very, again, young adult. There's no spice to this book at all. It's a very like sweet and fluffy type of romance. I think I would give this about a 3.5 stars. I like the characters, I like the story. I do wish there was a bit more romance. Usually I don't say this, but I do think that like this book could have even been a little longer or like had like a bit of a longer epilogue or whatever, but I really like how the book wrapped up. I like the pace of it. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed reading it. Highly recommend this romance novel. So the next book I'm going to read is XOXO by Axie. I just have this on my iPad. I think I tried to read this last year or maybe 2022. I'm not sure. I just know that this is about a girl falling in love with a K-pop idol. I don't know too much about this. I kind of just wanted to go into these books without knowing anything about the plot. I love the covers of her books, so I'm excited to read this. So I'm gonna read some of this right now. Also, like, disclaimer, normally I don't read like this many books in a day. I'm not even doing like a challenge video for that. I just have a lot of free time right now. I've made it to almost 50%. I'm like 45% of the way through. The first couple chapters, I was like, ooh, this might be a long book. But now that I'm kind of in the middle of it, I've started to enjoy actually reading this a lot more, which I'm so glad, because I really did not want to rate these books less than 2 stars. The whole sort of premise of this book is about this girl who lives in LA and she works at this karaoke bar, and one night there's a guy at this karaoke bar and they have this really, like, again, fun night out on the town and all of that, and they exchange phone numbers only for her to learn that he actually, like, lives in Seoul. Over the past months, she's been trying to reach out to this guy, but he hasn't, like, texted her back, and then stuff happens. She eventually moves to Seoul to go to school. They end up meeting again. So then she learns that he's actually a K-pop idol and they actually go to the same school. And so that's sort of the premise of the book. Not too much drama has happened, but I really do like the main, like, narrator for this book. Yeah, those are my main thoughts I have right now. I'm just gonna continue reading and see if these thoughts carry on for the last half of the book. I think I'm gonna go and get ready for bed and read some before I fall asleep, and I will update you guys my thoughts in the morning. I don't know, it's just really cute and fluffy and kind of sweet. It's not like as catty as a lot of, like, the other romances, but we'll see. I'm only 56% of the way through this, so we will see. So it is the next day, and I just finished XOXO by Axie last night, and I really enjoyed it. I believe I rated it 3.5, 3.75 stars. It's on the higher end of it, and honestly, it wasn't as cringy as I thought it was going to be. I think with these, like, K-pop romance books, a lot of K-pop fans are always like, is it really fanficky? Like, is it just, does it feel like you're reading, like, a K-pop fan fiction type of thing? There were some cringy moments for sure, but overall, I had a really good time reading it. The one thing I do have to say about this book is that it reminded me so much of the show XO on Netflix. If you don't know what XO is, it is the Jenny Han spin-off show of the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series. There were just so many similarities to the show XO, which I'm kind of confused about because this book was released before XO even aired. So I'm wondering some things. And there are definitely differences. So it's like, there are enough differences that I'm pretty sure it can avoid, like, a copyright complaint and all of that. It was just very much reminding me of the show XO. If you've read this book, comment down below if you think the same. But overall, yeah, story-wise, I would give it about 3 stars, I would say. I think the story was pretty solid. It was pretty straightforward. We do jump in time a lot, so, like, an event will happen and then jump a couple months, another event will happen. For characters, I would give it a 4 out of 5. There were a lot of characters that, you know, when they were first introduced, I wasn't really sure about. Even, like, the main narrator, I wasn't really sure about her the first couple chapters, but as I got through the book, I started to like her more and more. The love interest, his name is Jaewoo, and he's a very interesting character, and I wish we sort of explored more about his life in the book, but his was kind of, yeah, a bit glossed over. And there's Nathaniel, who's Jaewoo's pretty much band member, who also goes to the same school, and then there's a girl named Sori who also goes to the school. I think the author did a better job at sort of building those 2 characters than the chemistry between those 2 characters than the main 2 characters. Well, for romance, I would give it a 3 out of 5. I think the romance was cute. It did feel like it moved a bit quickly in this book. as a couple, they're good together, but at the same time, it was like there was nothing in the book that was like making me like kick my feet or anything like that. It was just like a couple that like I was kind of like, yeah, the romance is there, I see it. Like, I would say it was fairly basic for a romance, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the characters, and so yeah. Yeah, so I'm gonna get started on reading the second book called ASAP. And this one is about Sori and Nathaniel. I think it takes place in Sori's point of view. I really like these two as a couple, so I'm really interested in seeing sort of how this book is going to go, because it takes place for like a couple months or so, or maybe a year or so after the first book. I'm interested to see what this book is going to be about, because I really don't know what it's about. I just know which characters this book's about. I'm about 40% of the way through this book. I'm on chapter 18 right now. I really like this book, but this one is told from the point of view of Sori, and she's essentially this nepo baby of the CEO for this like K-pop entertainment company that has signed the group XOXO under, and so like I will share the rest of my thoughts after I finish this book, because I have a lot of thoughts, but I think it makes sense to share them like right after like I finish this book and actually have time to digest my feelings. I'll be able to finish this like in a couple of hours. I just finished reading ASAP by Axie. Let's talk about it. So overall, I personally really like this book. I like this book better than the first one. This one is second chance romance, and it is from the point of view of Sori, who appeared in the first book. And in the first book, you sort of get a background to what happened between Sori and Nathaniel. And Nathaniel is part of the group XOXO, which is the K-pop group that was introduced also in the first book. It takes place a year after the first book ends. This is very much a character-based book, so there's not a whole lot of plot to it. It is pretty much about these two characters just trying to figure out their relationship versus what's expected of them like in their current situations. And one thing about me is I love a good book with nepo babies, and I love a good book with nepo baby problems. This whole book contains so many nepo babies. When it comes to this book, I love nepo babies and I love their romance problems. So story-wise, I would rate this a good 4 out of 5. Even though it's more character-based, I do think that the story was kind of fun. The story was fun. There is a trope that I really liked in this that I don't really want to like spoil in case you guys are planning to read this book, so I won't say it, but there is a trope that I really like. If I compare it to the first book, I would say the first book has more of a story. Overall, story-wise, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. Character-wise, 4 out of 5. I really like Sori as a character, and I really like Nathaniel as a character. Nathaniel was definitely a more entertaining love interest. He's more like charismatic. He has more of a sense of humor compared to like the main love interest in the first book. I really like Sori as a character, but the thing is, one thing about this book that kind of just like I had to like really think about it for a bit was that book is written in English, like fully in English, but you have to remind yourself that the main narrator is a Korean speaking person. The main character, Sori, she's fully Korean. Like she only speaks Korean, she only speaks a tiny bit of English. So you really have to pay attention when you read. You have to kind of assume that like everything that Sori is thinking is technically in Korean, but it's written out in English for us. As for characters go, you get more moments with other characters that were introduced in the first book, as well as new characters that are introduced in the second book. And what I really liked about this book as well is that it doesn't really paint anyone as like as a bad person. Like all of these characters have their own motivations and their own sort of flaws and problems, but none of them are painted in like a bad sense or anything like that. When it comes to romance, I would give this romance a 4 out of 5 since their relationship was established in the first book. I think it just made the tension and the especially the romantic tension, much more apparent in this book, because you can tell that these characters like actually have like chemistry between each other, have this romantic relationship and want to be in this romantic relationship. Overall story, I would give it 4 out of 5. Characters, I would give it 4 out of 5. For romance, I would give it 4 out of 5. So overall, 4-star rating for this book. I really enjoyed it. Now, sort of to share my overall thoughts about 4 K-pop romances I read this week. The first book I'm going to talk about is Shine by jung, and this one I rated 2.5 stars. I honestly was kind of disappointed with it. Personally, to me, would not suggest you read Shine by jung. Like, if you are a Girls' Generation fan, if you're a Jessica Jung fan and you want to support her, go ahead and read that book. But for me, it just fell really flat for a K-pop romance novel and just for a K-pop novel in general. The next book I have is Somewhere Only We Know by Maurene, and I believe I rated this 3.5 stars. And personally, for this one, I liked it so much more because, first off, there's no trainee plotline or anything like that. It's pretty much about a girl who's already an established K-pop idol. And if you just want like a K-pop romance that has a lot of good banter, I would suggest Somewhere Only We Know. The banter in this one is so good, and also it's sort of like a strangers to lovers type of situation. So over a weekend, they get to know each other. It's like Roman Holiday or like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's sort of like they're just letting go for a weekend. They're getting to know each other because they know that by the end of it, they're probably not going to see each other again. I personally really liked it. I enjoyed every minute of it. I liked the characters in the book. I like sort of how the story went and the antics that they get into. And so I would suggest you read Somewhere Only We Know. And then the last 2 books I have to talk about is XOXO by Axie and ASAP by Axie. ASAP, baby. Hurry up, don't be lazy. I love New Jeans. So what I really liked about both of these books is that they're very cute, fluffy romances. So yeah, personally, yeah, I really like XOXO. I think I gave that one 3.75 stars. And then ASAP, I'm giving 4 stars. I really just like the characters and the romance in that one. And if she makes another book, which I'm hoping she does, because she has a ton of characters in her books. So if Axie makes another romance book, K-pop romance book, I will be seated for that. Those are my overall thoughts for the K-pop romances I read this week. I hope you enjoyed this vlog, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!